figure out how this works. Good morning, everyone. Like Josh mentioned, my name is Becca, and I'm one of the co-founders of Redeeming Zoe, and I am so excited to be here with you all this morning. My co-founder, Hillary, and I were first here in 2017, so we have a ton of updates and so many God stories to share with you. But for those of you who may not have heard our story just a few years ago, I wanted to start from our beginning and help you understand, like, how did two girls who grew up, one here in Greenville, I grew up in Longview, so two girls from Northeast Texas, how did they get to the Philippines? And our story started in 2014. We had the opportunity to serve in an orphanage in a rural community, and it was life-changing. We were both 24 at the time, and were pretty clueless. And that start changed our life forever. We were on a boat going from island to island, and there were many women on that boat being trafficked. And what that looked like is a man like circling around women who you could tell had no voice. He was providing their food. You could just feel the oppression in the room. And in that instance, it was life-changing. It was like, what's going on here? What's happening? We're just here to have fun with kids. And so if you go to the next slide, oh, hey, I can control that. Perfect. Oh, yes, I shoot that way. And through that experience of working in the orphanage and seeing these opportunities, like seeing these situations right in front of us, our story began, and the story of Redeeming Zoe began when a mom brought her daughter in. At the time, she was 11 years old, and we like to call her Zoe. And Zoe's mom said, I've been selling her to the neighbor to provide and feed for our family. And I think you can do a better job of taking care of her. You should just take her. We were 24. We were from America. We didn't speak the same language. We didn't know anything how to help this young girl. And it just made us realize not only were the children in the home that we were already taken care of, but this young girl, that many situations around the world, children in orphanages have living parents, but the family system needs work and needs help. And so from that moment, we're like, we need to work on strengthening the family system, because God didn't create orphanages. He created families, and he created mom and dads. So that's where the beginning started, is we wanted to work on strengthening families to protect children from abuse, to protect children from going into orphanages. So that was the story of where we started, how we started. And then we came home in 2015 from the Philippines, and we were on a mission. We were passionate, and we're like, we want to get back to the Philippines. We want to start an organization. We had no clue what we were doing, but the Lord blessed us with a team of people with wealth, wisdom, and influence that helped build the beginning of Redeeming Zoe. And so Zoe means life in Greek. It's the life that God breathed into Adam, and it's the life that we all have inside of us. And so we are redeeming the Zoe life, the God kind of life. And our tree logo comes out of Isaiah 61, verses 1 through 4. And that is our foundational verses. And it's a beautiful transition where it starts out with God talking about that, hold on, pregnancy brain. It says that we are to set the captives free, that bring good news to the poor. And it's this beautiful transition of seeing people accept the gospel, and then beauty for ashes for beauty, and all this transition. And at the end, in verse 4, it talks about that they may become oaks of righteousness, so that God gets the glory for all of it, and that they will see the devastations of many generations renewed and restored. And so we see that with the children that we're working with. We want them to change the generational cycles that were done before them. And that's where we started in 2016, in December of 2016. So we just hit 6 years. We went public with the vision of Redeeming Zoe. And we started meeting with people, meeting with those closest to us to get to the Philippines because we knew that's what God was calling us to do. And at that same time in 2016, and this is still true today, UNICEF labeled the Philippines as the #1 global source of child pornography and the epicenter of the live stream sexual abuse trade. So in the midst of all this, we're learning about the child abuse happening in the Philippines. We're learning about the deep desire to strengthen the family system. We're also learning about what's called OSEC, which is online sexual exploitation of children. And what that consists of is children being put in front of a live stream camera and someone on the other side is paying and directing what they want to see. The #1 place that's happening is in the Philippines. It happens everywhere, happens here in America, most likely happens in our neighborhoods, but the #1 place is in the Philippines. And many people ask, like, why the Philippines? Well, it is in Asia, but their second language is English. So you have this nation that is in extreme poverty that speaks English, and they have really good Wi-Fi signal. And they all have access to a smartphone, or they can go to what is called a peso cafe, where they pay a peso to use the computer. So this is our heart cry as an organization of what we are wanting to work towards and to fix, is to see the end of OSEC. So when we were last here, and what we thought we wanted to start was a community center. We're like, we're going to get to the Philippines, we're going to build a community center so we can run all of our programs out of this building. And as we got there, God opened doors so quickly, so much more than I would have ever even dreamed. So when we arrived full-time in Cebu, Philippines in November of 2017, and we started being invited to attend government meetings, and we chose a city where we work. We work in a city called Cordova, and Cordova is near an international airport. There's only 2 international airports in the Philippines. And in Cordova, they have the most rescues of children in the entire nation from OSEC. So it is a hot spot, continues to be a hot spot, but it's also a community where they're actually actively fighting against it. And so the mayor is working towards it. They have a child rights protection unit group now where all the organizations, the local Philippine police, local board members from the School of Education, every month a whole group of about 15 individuals meet to talk about what's happening in the community and what can be done to protect children in Cordova. So when we got there and we had this vision of a community center, we already realized there's already a community of people working to protect children here. What can we do to add to them? And the mayor quickly was excited to meet us, was excited that we were there, and said, you can use our facilities anytime. Oh, and they're air conditioned. Just so you know, in the Philippines, that is a big deal. It's like Texas with more humidity, but without air conditioner. So instantly the Lord opened doors, and we were able to partner with the government and use their facilities for free. And what a better, beautiful connection than to go out, spend money building a building when we can partner with the government in protecting children. So very quickly from the beginning of Redeeming Zoe, we saw the Lord opening doors. And then 2018 came and blew our mind. So when we joined the Child Rights Protection Unit group, one of the things that we wanted to offer was we want to train teachers how to recognize and respond to the signs of child abuse and what OSEC looks like, but also just what child abuse in general looks like. So with OSEC, it looks like children from these extreme impoverished neighborhoods all of a sudden having laptops and smartphones and name brand clothing. And so just out of random, they're still living in a shack, but they still, where did the laptop come from? And so we started educating teachers on what those signs look like and how and where to report it. So we quickly realized that there was a reporting issue in the communities of being able to trust the local police, because this is a business and it's running this community. People were scared to report to the police when they knew, people could tell us oh, it's this neighborhood, oh, it's this neighborhood, but people were scared to report it. And so as an organization, we started letting people know, like, you can come to us, you can report to us, we will keep your information private. And so in the summer of 2018, during their school break, we were able to train 192 school teachers, all in Cordova. And that reached about 13,000 students in those teachers. And so quickly it was like, oh my goodness, Lord, what are you doing here? How can we keep up with this? This is exciting. And when the mayor came and spoke at our trainings, which is a big deal. The mayor there is like, as if the president walked in the room. She's like a celebrity. And so when the mayor came in and kind of gave her stamp of approval for our trainings, she attended the next Child Rights Protection Unit meeting, which was not something that she would regularly do. And she kind of pitched the idea, if you can do this for teachers, can you do this for children? And we're like, we sure can. Yes, we can. So Hillary and I both have a background of working at YMCAs. We both worked here at the YMCA here that used to be open in Greenville, and for Boys and Girls Club. Hillary now works back for Boys and Girls Club. And so our goal long term was to do an after school program for children who were labeled at risk. So when the mayor approached us about our own idea, it was like, okay, Lord, we're listening. And so after that training, we started a program called Club Kinabuhi. Kinabuhi in Cebuano means life, and so we just went with the theme of life because we are all about taking back life. And we worked with the guidance counselor at a local elementary school just to start a pilot program. And their school starts in July and goes till April. And so in July, we started this program with 30 students. And within 3 months, we reported 5 different types and cases of child abuse to the guidance counselor, who reported it to like our CPS. And in that 5 reports was one report. We were sitting in one of our activities. We would meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 hours, and it was just fun. We did Bible scriptures, and we did games, and it was more like a play therapy of like, we're just here to teach Christian values, but in the end also we know the signs of abuse, so we're like really scoping our eyes out to see what's going on here. And we were very involved with the families. We would have a monthly family activity where we were trying to get as much involved in their lives. And so in one of our activities, we did a trust circle where we all sat in a circle and we just started asking questions about who here has a Facebook. And the group of children we were working with were grades 3, 4, and 5. So 3, 4, and 5, anywhere from like 8 to 10, and very young. And definitely no need for a Facebook. And so in our 30 children, every one of them raised their hand, and we're proud of it, and we're excited about it. And then we're like, well, who here is friends with foreigners? Every one of them raised their hand. And they're in a remote community where you don't see a lot of white-skinned people, no matter what country they're from. And so it's also a sign of status to add foreigners on Facebook, of like, oh, I have a whole bunch of white friends. And so we started just asking questions of like, well, who's carried on conversations with these people? And like, the children not knowing what we're like trying to ask. And then we asked who's received pictures. And one young girl raised her hand, and we're like, okay. And quickly when she raised her hand, she realized that she was the only one and put it down. And so we just continued, kept going. And afterwards, we had the opportunity to just kind of ask more questions, which led to realizing that she was being groomed for online exploitation, and that the person was there in the Philippines wanting her to come to his home. And so in that case, we met with her grandmother, that was her caretaker, and realized that not only it was her, it was her older sister. And in that, we were able to take them to the Women and Child's Protection Unit, which is where you go to report online exploitation. And we were able to help them report that they were being groomed for this. And it was the first time in the Philippines that someone went to report it from the Philippine side, and it wasn't a case that came out like here. how it happens that Homeland Security will send tips to the Philippines and say, we found child pornography on this man's computer or woman's computer. We know that it's in this area in the Philippines, and they start that way. This was the first time in the Philippines history that it had been reported in country, and they didn't know how to handle it. So it was a huge win for our organization, and it was like, this is why we started. This is the whole purpose of why God gave us this vision and why we're here. And so those two sisters were removed from their home due to other abuse, and they are thriving. We have a monthly connection with them, and we have been able to see just a beautiful growth and bond, and to know that they will never know the storyline of online sexual abuse. It was such a win. So then COVID happened, and everything shut down. So things shut down here, but things like became a whole nother world there. Everything went into lockdown for almost a full year. The Philippines had the longest lockdown in the world. And so everything, like you weren't even legally allowed to leave your home unless you were the quarantine pass holder. And so that only lasted for 4 months for Hillary and I before we're like, we have to go back to America. I can't sit in this much longer. I'm about to go crazy. And so we had to learn, like, how can we continue to serve our communities when things are shut down? And so at the time, we had 2 staff who lived in the community where we were working and serving. And they were able to pack food packs and go and serve the community volunteers who were helping those in the COVID centers, or those who were going house to house to help people financially who lost their jobs. So we started giving out rice packs on a regular basis, on top of canned foods, on top of vitamins. And through that process, our staff, who at the time, 2020 began with a staff transition for us. And so we were only working with our staff for 1 month before COVID hit. They didn't know our clients. They didn't know where our clients lived. And so I knew where one client lived. And I said, I drew on a Google map, this is where she lives, maybe go check her out. And then that connection, they were able to find every other house, which ended up being 27 houses. They got on a motorcycle and just found every 27 house down alleyways and dirt roads. And so we were able to still keep those connections with our families during COVID. And many of them were in deep need of basic necessities like shampoo and laundry soap and just all your basic life necessities. And so it was a beautiful partnership that we were able to continue with those families who we still on a monthly basis serve today. And then 2021 came. So Hillary and I moved back full time in July of 2020. And we had to figure out, what does that look like? We have a new staff who is very passionate, but what can we do, because COVID protocols were still in place in the Philippines. Schools in the Philippines did not open until August of 2022. So they were shut down for a full 2 years. And so we're like, well, we can't go into schools. Like, what can we do? So we were invited to join a Compassion International trip to a remote island where they were going to be doing a feeding. And we're like, well, can we take our child protection material and we'll just join you in your feeding? And that's where it started. We started one, and then the door started opening. And we realized in these remote communities, they have a great cell phone signal, and they have no police presence. So great cell phone signal, extreme poverty, little oversight, police protection is the perfect area for online exploitation. So we started going in these remote islands. So there's 7,000 islands in the Philippines. I think about half of them are inhabited. So when I say an island, it could be the size of a football field, and there may be 100 people living on it. This one that they went to is called Panglao, and I get some of the names wrong all the time. But this one, they partnered with a church that we still have a partnership with, and they went in, and what they do is they connect with the pastor first. And they tell the pastor, this is what we want to do. Can you collect and bring your children and families on this day, and we'll provide a food pack, we'll provide a snack, and we're going to do lessons for both children and parents. And in 2021, in about 3 to 4 months, we went to 3 different remote islands, and our staff of 2 were able to accomplish all this, and it's been beautiful. So from there, our staff were like, well, we have this curriculum, but it's in English, and it doesn't fully represent our Philippine culture. So they took it upon themselves to create an 8-lesson curriculum called I Can Be Strong, Smart, and Safe. And it has been absolutely a beautiful transition. It's currently in a high school in Cordova, where the high school students in a class are being taught this on a regular basis, and then they're being tested after for like their knowledge retention. And it's just overwhelming to think of something so simple that is impacting so many. So in 2022, our team created this curriculum, and we were able to start partnering with new churches, with new schools, new communities. And one of the things that our staff really did was look at Cordova and see what areas, I mean, it's all impoverished, but what areas are in deep poverty. And so they started doing small community groups in these areas where they would go and do an 8-week lesson. One of them was a tent community, because there was a massive typhoon that hit Cebu area in December of 2021. So we were able to go and work in this tent community that was temporary, and work with these children who were extreme vulnerable, being in this tent community, not having much. So we were able to work with the children and the parents and teach them who God says they are, and teach them how to protect their children, and for the children how to stay safe and how to say no. And in 2022, we did 22 child protection trainings. That was not planned. It just happened that we did 22 child protection trainings. And so it's been overwhelming to see the growth and how Redeeming Zoe has really come alive in our mission and vision since COVID happened. That God has opened doors in so many ways, and we more than doubled our reach just last year. So here's some numbers. So in 2022, we added 3 more remote islands. So we now have worked in 6 different islands. We added 3 new school partnerships where we have trained their teachers on how to recognize and respond to the signs of child abuse. And something that we started with is working with nonprofits. So there is a multitude of nonprofits in Cebu in many different areas. So we worked with some that do street ministry. We worked with some that work with survivors who make jewelry. We worked in all different areas. And we did trainings from trauma-informed care, self-care. We talked about who God says you are. We talked about I can be strong, smart, and safe, and taught child protection tips. So across the board, whatever was needed, we worked with nonprofits to provide training. And from our 30 families in 2019, we still maintain 20 of those. We have graduated some that we feel were no longer needed to be part of our program. And so we still work with 20 families on a monthly basis and provide them with a food pack. And just last month, one of our mothers said, I'm just so grateful for this, because we always provide 10 pounds of rice, about 5 kilos of rice. So 10 pounds of rice a month, which we're like, that's a lot of rice. But they eat it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every meal has rice. And along with our rice packs, we every month change up what we include in it. So some months we'll include like canned goods. Some months we'll include dry milk. Some months we'll include vitamins. But last month we include hygiene products. So we did laundry soap. We did shampoo, toothpaste. And one of the mothers said, like, I'm just so appreciative of this, because this is something this month that my family couldn't set aside money to provide for. Like, we had money to eat, but we didn't have money for these items. And so every month we hear a God story of like what we're led to provide and how it's providing for these families. And then through the 22 trainings that we held, we trained 1,320 individuals. And that's just the individual that oversees a program. And so through that, there was an impact of over 5,000 children that will be reached through these programs. So that's just the start. This year, our team, they hope to train 2023 individuals. So 2,023 individuals they hope to train in child protection. And they are already running. And also in August, we added a third staff member. So we have 3 full-time staff that the Lord has just fully connected us with. It's beautiful. It's overwhelming to see how God continues to use our ministry. And then, here's more of our goals. So one of the things is we want to get our child protection curriculum copyrighted. And our long-term goal since we started Redeeming Zoe, I remember as a kid, it was a huge impact on my life, was DARE and like Red Ribbon Week that we have here. And you learn about drugs, you learn about all the things that they say no to. Well, there's no programs like that in the Philippines. But they do have the month of November is National Children's Month, and we envision a week of child protection that's nationwide, where children learn all the good things about their body and how to protect it. And so our long-term goal is to get our curriculum in the national in the Philippines Department of Education implemented nationwide. And so we now, like I mentioned earlier, have it in a high school, and it's kind of a pilot program, and it's doing so well. And we've made connections with the Department of Education in Manila, the capital city. So we're slowly getting there. And then train 2,500 individuals in child protection. And we really want to grow our remote island ministry. We see such an impact in these communities that don't get a lot of resources because they are so remote. We see the huge opportunity to go into these communities and not only share the gospel with them, but help them know, like, this is real, this is out there. If you're offered a job that's too good to be true, like, make sure that do your due diligence in following through these things. And also just building those long-term connections and connecting people to local churches. Because every remote area, that's one thing in the Philippines that we're really blessed with, is it is a Christian nation, but it is about 98% Roman Catholic. And so everyone knows who Jesus is. Everyone believes in Jesus in some form. And so we have the opportunity to go in and connect people to local churches, and local churches that we know have a strong foundation and are teaching like the good news of Christ. And so we have big goals for 2023. We're excited about what's ahead. And that's only possible through individuals like you. So we currently have 38 individuals that help create our monthly giving and help sustain what we do. And we drastically need to improve that. And we've made it easy. You can scan the QR code or text donate. And one of the things that we're hoping to do is to grow our budget by at least $1,000 a month. So that only takes 10 people given, oh gosh, I had the math in my head earlier. 10 people given $100 or 20 people given $50. That's all it takes. And so it's just a monthly gift to help protect and invest in the future of children in the Philippines. And if you can't give today, you can also wear the vision of Redeeming Zoe, which every marketing item we have comes from East Texas Print Shop, so I can guarantee the quality. And you can wear the vision and help spread the vision of protecting children in the Philippines. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer those now. And if not, you can come see me at the merch table. So I just want to take this time to thank Josh and Pastor Jimmy for allowing me to come and speak, and for all of you to listen to the good things that God is doing in the Philippines. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No. Yes, a question? Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a good question. So there are a lot of dropped balls in the justice system sometimes. And apparently, when we went to report, the young girls just forgot their Facebook password. And so, unfortunately, that case has never been closed and has never moved forward. And that is scary because we know that this man was living there. So we don't know the outcome of that. But that's when we have to put it in God's hands and say, like, we know this man exists. We know he's here, and we know his intentions of why he's here. And so I just hope that maybe there's another situation where a child is protected, but there's another situation where his name is actually brought up. So we were never able to find his name, and we passed it to all the right investigators and individuals. But it can be a challenge sometimes working with social media platforms because they have such a high level of privacy. So you have to have like a depth of, you have to like all the paperwork to surpass an individual's information to like get in. I don't know how to explain it well. It's challenging working with social media platforms because they have so many privacy things of, so we couldn't just say, oh, this man's talking to this girl, can we get her information? And they're like, well, no, we don't have any evidence of that. We're not just going to give you her private information. So unfortunately, that case has never been closed, but the girls were removed and the Facebook account was closed, so there was no access. So great question, but unfortunately, I have no resolution for that. Does anyone have any other questions? That's a great question. So currently in the Philippines, the peso to US dollar rate is 55 pesos to 1 US dollar. So $50 in the Philippines is on average about 2,500 pesos. The daily rate for someone working a good job in the Philippines is 400 pesos a day. So that's $8 a day. And the community where we work and live, some people live on $4 or $5 a day. Some live on $1, $2 a day. So $50 can help provide. We normally spend, I think it's about $5 US dollars per individual with those monthly packs. That's how cheap, like, it costs to live there. And so for $50, we can provide 10 food packs a month. And that's how far our US dollar goes in the Philippines. So we're able to do a lot more work than sometimes we would be able to do here just because of what our money can purchase there. Yeah, great question. Does anyone else have any more questions? Yes? Oh no, it's fully all bought there in local communities. We have what we call a suki. A suki is the person that you go to and buy your stuff on a regular basis. So we have shops and individuals who are business owners that we work directly with every month. And so one, we help these small business owners, but two, they work with us and help give us the best price that they can because we come back every month. And so we buy our rice right in the community of Cordova in this store where there's all these lines of different types of rice, different qualities of rice. And then we buy our canned goods at the local grocery store, throw it on a tricycle, and they bag it and take it to families on a motorcycle. So it's quite the adventure that I should have them video sometime. Yeah, so life has definitely taken me in a different route, as you may recognize here. And at this time, so Hillary started working with another organization in August of 2021, and now she works for Northeast Texas Boys and Girls Club. So she's around your communities working to protect children. And now, like, neither one of us envisioned going back full time, But definitely, we still have a whole house in storage in the Philippines that we pay monthly on. And so we have not had the opportunity to go back. They just open. They just opened for foreign citizens to come in April of 2022. So we haven't had the opportunity since then, but we hope to go by the end of the year to check in on the staff, to get all of our belongings out of storage. And our names are on the Redeeming Zoe bank account in the Philippines. And so we want to change that to local foreigners as well, so that there's no problems with business. And Hillary's like, well, can they just do an electronic signature? I'm like, no, every month I have to send a picture. I have to request our board treasurer for a passbook. So they still, there's no online system for banking in the Philippines. And all of our transactions is printed in this book that one person has. And I'm like, there's no way they could do an electronic signature. They're a few years behind. So yes, our goal is to go in November. So we're hoping that the Lord opens those doors. I'm very ready to go back and see those relationships, and for COVID to be part of the past for them and their lives there. Awesome. Oh, our staff is 3 women. Hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.